Brother Gary Wood will now present the talk, Fulfilling the Law of Christ When Unseen by Humans.
Advertisement tells us what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. And for many, this is a reality. You can do anything you want and then just drive away and all is forgotten. For those that this is a reality, it's those who have no concern for the law of Christ and no concern for fellow family members as well. But for others, this thinking can be a life-changing turning point. One bad decision away from a totally different lifestyle. Because of our inherited imperfections, each of us must struggle against wrong imperfections and wrong inclinations. What we do in private reveals the depth of our appreciation for that law of Christ. This including avoiding things that many people or most people would not even know that we're involved in, if anybody, viewing of pornography or over drinking in private. How can we strengthen our resolve to avoid what is bad and do what is good, even when it's unseen by humans? We do this by deepening our appreciation for the law of Christ. We're going to examine 4 ways that we can do this. And the first way is to heighten our awareness of Jehovah. Now, what does that mean? Well, having a heightened awareness of Jehovah allows us to realize we're not alone, and that's a positive thing. We also need to realize we can't always do it alone, that we need the help of Jehovah our God. You know, a couple of years ago, I was on an island in Upper Michigan, Mackinac Island. There's no cars, no buses, no subways. The only mode of transportation is bicycles, walking, and horses. Well, my wife and I decided we were going to ride horses as we've done in the past. But 2 minutes into our ride, deep into the woods, 2 minutes after our guide left, my horse decided he was through with me. First he tried to throw me forward, then he reared back and tried to throw me backwards. He even turned around and bit my foot 3 times. Now here's the most painful part. My wife on the horse behind me started laughing at me. She said, "You're a big man, control that horse." So at that moment in time, I couldn't control her or the horse, so obviously I was in trouble. The horse then proceeded to slam me into a tree 3 times. It broke the tree in half. The tree died. I lived, but I had to have surgery on my knee. And the horse lived, but every time I go into a store and I see a bottle of Elmer's glue, I think about Chip. But it was too much for me, too powerful. I needed help. I needed that guide who left us. Jehovah never leaves us. He's always there for us. He can help control our lives if we allow him to guide us. He's stronger, he's more powerful than anything that we could come up against. Remember that Jehovah observes all our actions, both the good and the bad, and he's keenly interested in us. He's not just waiting and wanting us to sin. As parents, when we observe our children, are we just looking at them hoping, okay, the next thing he does is going to be wrong, it's going to be bad? No, we want our children and grandchildren to succeed. And Jehovah is no different. He wants us to succeed as well. However, he knows the propensity that we have as sinners, and he knows the pitfalls of this world, and so he's concerned and wants to help. Expressing our specific concerns to Jehovah heightens our awareness of him, especially when we discern that he's answering our prayers. But an important point to remember is fulfilling the law of Christ is motivated by love, not guilt, not shame, and not fear. This enables us to have a better chance for success, because if we love someone, we're going to feel less inclined to want to hurt them and disappoint them. The second way that we strengthen our resolve to avoid what is bad is avoid even taking that very first step towards what is unclean. There's often an identifiable first step that a person makes that allows them to be more vulnerable in spiritual danger, and then each successive step after that is critical because it makes it more increasingly difficult to turn back. A scriptural thought with regards to this can be found in Proverbs, the 22nd chapter. Proverbs, the 22nd chapter, we'll take a look at verse 3. It says, "The shrewd one sees the danger and conceals himself, but the inexperienced keep right on going and suffer the consequences." So practical ways that one can be shrewd is to be aware of the dangers of the internet and television. Just aimlessly surfing either one of them can be very dangerous. Perhaps we've had a long day at work and we're at home just channel surfing. Our mind is somewhere else. We're not even really looking at, or rather thinking about what it is that we're viewing. My wife recently walked in and I was watching television, and she looked at the television and looked at me and said, "Why are you watching Chinese news?" Well, my first thought was, how long have I been watching Chinese news? Because I didn't know that I was. But don't worry, brothers, I answered correctly. I said, "I speak Chinese." She just said, "Uh-huh." My mind was somewhere else, a total disconnect. If we're shrewd and we're not subscribed to the channels that highlight violence and sex, the more serious things are taken out of the equation. So we can aimlessly be surfing television because we know there's nothing on any of the channels that can be that bad. We're in a much safer zone, but we even know that's a struggle. Perhaps we've done the dance with the cable or the satellite providers where they give you 1 year of adult programming for free, and you tell them, "Well, I don't want it." Yeah, but it comes with the package. But I don't want it. I want to be safe. I have children, grandchildren. No, but you can block them out. So it's just this dance back and forth. Well, since you're wanting to give me something free, give me golf and baseball. No, you're a valued customer, and we only want to give you our smut channels for free. So that's the thinking. The same thing with the internet. We need to be proactive in our settings on our computers as to what it is that we're viewing, using safeguards that can be put into place that blocks out these bad things. So if we avoid the first step toward what is unclean, we set safeguards to protect ourselves and adhere to them. We don't need to worry about what our next step will be because we've covered our bases. The third thing we can do is decisively reject wrong thoughts. We know that wrong thinking is something that happens sometimes slowly, but it can also be triggered in a moment's notice. When wrong desires come to mind, we need to choose not to dwell on them. How do we do that? Well, like was mentioned earlier, we need to pray. Pray to stop this harmful thinking. We need to fight wrong thoughts by continuously considering the things that please God. The fourth thing that we can do is choose to do good because it pleases Jehovah and it brings glory to Jehovah as well. Jesus was deeply conscious of always pleasing his Father, and all things would include the things that are mentioned in 1 Corinthians, the 10th chapter, and verse 31. Let's take a look at that. 1 Corinthians 10:31. It says, "Therefore, whether you are eating or drinking or doing anything else, do all things for God's glory." So this doing all things for God's glory means that at all times and under all circumstances, we think about Jehovah's worthiness to receive our praise, and we know he is worthy. Each Christian who chooses to drink alcoholic beverages should ask themselves, does the amount of alcohol I consume, even in private, impede that or distract from God's glory? If we're known as a person who can hold their liquor, then we have a problem. But what about in private? If someone were to stop by, would it be obvious that we've had too much? What about if we were pulled over by a police officer? Would we be in trouble in that regard as well? To help us in a more detailed fashion, I would like to interview Carl Roeder, an elder in the Mountain Shadows congregation. Brother Roeder, could you please explain to us how some have fallen into the habit of viewing pornography?
Well, they may start viewing suggestive images that are not necessarily pornographic, such as people in swimwear or models in advertisements. They may start rationalizing that these things aren't so bad. But as they continue to feed these wrong desires, they gradually escalate into viewing worse things.
How this happens?
Well, now that they have this relaxed sense of danger, they may begin to channel surf late at night in television or view inappropriate sites on the internet when no one else is around. There also may be emotional triggers that will cause them to let their guard down, such as feeling hungry or tired or angry or lonely. Now, if the person's married, they may start finding fault with his or her mate with an attempt to justify viewing pornography.
So what can a person who's struggling with an attraction to pornography do?
It's absolutely imperative that they know and be guided by Bible principles.
So can you share a few examples of these Bible principles that have proved helpful?
I'll mention 3 of them. The first one is Colossians 3:5, where it says, "Deaden your body members as respects sexual immorality, uncleanness, uncontrolled sexual passions, hurtful desire, and greediness." So the word used here, deaden, vividly conveys the idea of striking these improper thoughts dead. So not simply suppressing them, but striking them dead. So this means that an individual must be aware of what he's viewing and how it affects him, and immediately stop viewing anything that could fuel these improper thoughts. The second one is found at James 5:16. "Openly confess your sins to one another and pray for one another. A righteous man's supplication has a powerful effect." So this means that one must seek help from others, confiding in others. It could be his mate, a trusted friend, or an elder in the congregation. But this will take great courage and determination to do this. But it is a vital step in counteracting the pull of pornography. And the third is Philippians 2:13, where it says, "God energizes you, giving you both the desire and the power to act." This shows that if a person prays to Jehovah God and yields to his Holy Spirit, it will help him to counteract any wrong desires and actions.
Well, thank you very much, Brother Roeder, for reminding us of these Bible principles and their applications, which have been discussed in our publications. There are many benefits from fulfilling the law of Christ. Obeying the law of Christ helps us to have a happy life, a clean heart, a good conscience before Jehovah. The opposite of what that slogan in Las Vegas is, because we know what happens in Vegas or any other village, town, or city doesn't necessarily stay there, but many times ends up in divorce court, the morgue, in the delivery room. So certainly we need to be careful, because we know that it does not end up in God's kingdom. How happy we are that we have the respect for this law of Christ. So a review question: how can we fulfill the law of Christ when unseen by humans? The answer is 1 Corinthians 10:31, that by making it our purpose in life to do all things for God's glory, this dominates all our thoughts and actions, including when we are unseen by other humans. So the loving guidance contained in the law of Christ gives us confidence that Jehovah will help us to pursue a course that will lead to everlasting life.